There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the, what day is it? December 7th, 2022 JupyterLab call. Super happy to have you here. I'm Isabella. I'll be hosting today. We currently have 16 people on the call and lots of items in the agenda, which makes me excited. So with that, we're going to get started. The first thing I see, if HackMD will let me scroll right, Jeremy says he will not be here, but he's trying to bring attention to an issue on JupyterLab Team Compass that I can link in the chat, talking about cleaning up teams and permissions within the JupyterLab organization. Oh no, this has not been done yet. I thought it had. I'm happy to go into that more depth if people have questions, but I am not Jeremy and he probably has more details, but I think it's just over time we've collected a lot of people in different groups and that we can probably clean up with some of the different governance, including councils. We kind of know more who's supposed to be where. So I will be quiet for a moment if anyone wants to discuss that.
Just a quick comment that I think of teams. The major trouble being probably extensions that are also in the organization that have specific rights.
Okay. That's a good clarification. I'm skimming the issue really quick to see if there is kind of a next step being asked for here. I'm not immediately seeing one, though I'm thinking it's just agreement to clean up these team permissions. So probably we'll follow up on this again. That would be my guess. Feel free to comment on the issue if you have other thoughts in between. Okay. I will go to the next agenda item. If something comes up, I think we'll probably have time to loop back. So just let me know in the chat. Fred, you are next on the agenda. You ready?
Yeah, thanks, Isabella. So the first point is an issue opened by Carlos. So it's one of my, and this is related to real-time collaboration. So basically with 3.6 and so what's in master 2, we have improved real-time collaboration by moving the source of truth to be on the backend side. And this is using an external package that's called Jupyter Server White Duck. It has some drawbacks. Specifically, it doesn't support all the people that have developed their own content manager. It may not work with that package because depending on how the real documents are stored, and it will or will not work. And basically, Carlos has, after looking at the code, he has come with an idea of ensuring backward compatibility and making probably the implementation more robust by using so for people that are not familiar with that, the drive, it's the basic API that is used for displaying content in the file browser. And it's possible to define new drive, for example, is what the GitHub extension is doing. So for example, the GitHub extension is creating fake drives that displays you the content of a repository on GitHub. And so the idea is to use that API for collaboration instead of what to highlight that discussion and to try to have feedback of what people are thinking of. So yeah, that's the reason for that first point. Yeah, I mean, in total, so thanks, Jason. I'm gonna stop my video to try to hopefully clarify my sound. Yeah, so don't hesitate to look at the issue, and if you have comments or points that have not been seen, if it's a good or bad idea, like don't hesitate to comment on that issue, because it definitely looks like a good pattern for RTC. And yeah, if you have extension that you know of that may be endangered by that, then please comment. And the other one is just to follow up again on the announcement PR. So I changed the way notification are handled. So as suggested by Jason Groth, they now can only be plain text, and they are limited to 140 characters. And the idea is to not have like a very huge notification that can cover a big part of the screen. And if somebody can review it, I would be very glad, because it's basically blocking the release of 3.6.0.
Awesome. I was looking to review that anyway, so I will move that up on my list. That may not cover all the review you need, but I am happy to give it a look.
Thanks, Isabella. And Nick, don't feel sorry about JupyterLab. You are not the only one to be blamed. Like, because for example, if some people are using the content manager, like the hybrid content manager, in which, for example, you can have a mixture of local file, but like S3 bucket thing, then it's of real-time collaboration. So yeah, don't worry, you're not the only one to blame. Right? It's not even to blame. It's only one use case, let's say, that will benefit from that new pattern that Carlos is suggesting.
Awesome. Oh, sorry. Go on if you're going to say more. All right. Well, I hope to see some other review on the announcement PR as well. But I think we're going to move on with the quiet. Next on the agenda, we have Gabriella, who says she will not be attending. She asked, could we create a UX research repo so we can document things like best practices and methodologies as we go, guides for anyone interested in contributing UX research, and research protocols from studies, which is a good question. I'm thinking that's also a follow-up with, she's been sharing some UX research she's been able to do recently, which is awesome. Mike, I see you left a comment. If you are here, do you want to speak to that, or do you want me to read it for you?
Yeah, there is already a repository which has only one folder in it, which is called JupyterLab Design, and that might be a good home for this kind of analysis. Not sure if there would be a better one. I probably wouldn't want to have too many repositories with assets like that. And just wanted to say that I very much like the analysis which is currently in this repository. It highlighted some pretty good, some pretty relevant issues with the file browser, for example.
Yeah, we definitely, we have a few layers. I think JupyterLab Design, from my knowledge, also haven't been used at all. I'm also throwing out Jupyter surveys. I know that there's been some different intents, and these aren't all surveys, but I know that there is not exclusively survey research in there. If we want to limit that, then we should probably make that more explicit. But that's for, I would say, like, maybe not only JupyterLab. So it seems like we actually have a few options. I don't know why I'm asking you all this when she's not here. I was going to say, is there a way we should follow up on this? And she's not here to hear these answers, but I guess it's in the notes.
I will follow on that, and I will tell her.
Okay.
There is also Jupyter/design, where there is the trademark and guide. So I will link that as well. So probably, as you mentioned, that's a question of what goes for Jupyter, what goes for JupyterLab specifically.
Yeah, and I don't think we have a formal answer to that, at least that I'm aware of. Great. But yeah, I do really like the idea, especially since I know I was annoying and asked in one of the meetings that Gabriela was sharing work in, saying like, oh, is this going to be somewhere? So I'm really happy to hear that followed up. I will be quiet for a few moments for any other comments on that, people with strong or ambivalent opinions about where UX research should go in their ecosystem. Awesome, thank you. Okay, Mike, this time it is your turn on the agenda.
Hi, so JupyterLab UI Profiler, which is an extension which allows you to test how much your styles, CSS, and JavaScript contribute to the performance of JupyterLab, is currently in a state of a pull request on the benchmarks repo, but after some thinking, I'd suggest that maybe we should create a separate repository and just use that a released version as a dependency for the benchmarks to run benchmarks with this extension. So this is just saying that I plan to create a new repository, and if you have any feedback or some suggestions like changing the name before I create the repository or anything, just let me know. In the longer term, I posted a link to Binder, but I don't know, it stopped building right before I tried to update it to the newest version. So there will be a link to Binder in the new repository that will share the link next week. Ultimately, the goal is to have a blog post or other kind of announcement to encourage extension developers to share the benchmark results. And because JupyterLab doesn't have any kind of telemetry, we have to rely on opt-in and feedback from users. So that would be a way that I hope to gather some representative data, at least from extension developers and more advanced users, to see what might be the bottlenecks in the performance of our UI. Any comments on this one?
I see Nick has left some comments in the chat about this.
Okay.
Sure, I can talk. Yeah, that's a freaking cool extension. If you haven't checked it out, it's really awesome, and it's crazy to watch it do the things that it does. Yeah, but then on the other piece, in terms of getting people to use stuff, there's a lot of things on GitHub. We've talked about this for accessibility in the past as well. If you give people a way that it's like, during your CI, get to a tarball of your extension, right? Like get to a pip installable tarball, drop that in the top of this action, and it'll go off and run your benchmarker for you. People might actually do that, you know? And then because they've given up all their rights to their data to you and you can do whatever you want, you could capture that data and make it part of an interesting report site. That's all.
Yeah, that could be great for regression testing as well. So that's a very interesting idea. I'll try to explore that. Thank you.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't like, you just don't want to have to run a data warehouse to store it, right? So you need to give folks a way that they can keep those around or whatever. Give all those. Yeah, it may not be legally possible, but anytime that you give someone your GitHub actions, that's what you're doing. That is what you're doing. You are just giving it away. So, but people seem to be happy to do so.
All right. Skipping over the legal questions, we'll consider that once we have to do, or if we consider doing so. So the other point is copy and paste. So I opened a PR for terminal, which was really a thing that was bothering me, that I couldn't just paste in the terminal. And that was merged, and it's reusing the same mechanism and pattern that we have in the file editor. And the problem is that it doesn't work in Firefox because Firefox restricts the paste permissions. It doesn't even implement paste permissions, so it cannot check whether the permission is there. So I opened an issue to discuss how we could work that around. The two common approaches are to either display a pop-up with an input dialog and instruction, please paste by pressing Ctrl V now, or to have an extension, and that's a little bit problematic because you probably want to test these extensions with different browsers. Sorry, a browser extension, to stress that, which captures the paste event, has access to any given website, and passes it on to the website itself to handle. So this is like, one is implemented in Google Docs, the other is used by Office 365. I very much welcome if someone has time to discuss design considerations, how a dialog like that should look like, or any other suggestions. That's it from me.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was reading the issue you linked, but yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to be quiet to give some more time for comments, and then we can move on. If not. Okay. Eric Gentry, do you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so for context, I'm working on improving the JupyterLab extension tutorial document and probably the docs writing section on the developer guidelines. I submitted an issue about some issues with the extension tutorial. Mike Krasowski kind of submitted like a proposed solution to that for the sample code in the docs. So I've been working to implement his suggested changes throughout the extension tutorial document. So that I've finished an initial version of that I hope to upload and merge into the docs. But I'm having an additional problem now, which is getting the docs to build locally. So I talked about this in the notebook meeting previously, but if anybody else, if somebody can like drop their name in the chat, if anybody else here is knowledgeable about what the current process is to build the docs, and if anyone can, kind of maybe let me bounce some questions off of you, I would really appreciate that. I know Frederick had some notes on the issue I submitted related to having trouble building the docs and the docs instructions. So I know that right now the instructions for building the docs don't match master. So I just also wanted to kind of see if I could improve that situation and make sure that the docs for authoring docs are good. So if anybody can drop me your like Gitter name or email or something in the chat here, I would love to write that down so I can bounce questions off you guys.
Thank you for checking on that. I know, yeah, documentation is often one of those things that we end up doing kind of last minute. So it's really nice to have someone focusing on it. Yeah, I don't want to volunteer people without them being here, but I know this has come up.
I see Mike here. I may ping you, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, I will look around too. I feel like this has also come up in some other cases, but my memory may just be making things up to satisfy your question, so I'll verify. Any other comments, thoughts on documentation? I built the docs locally recently and it worked fine when I did this, kind of lifesavers.
Okay.
No, that was what we're calling for. Yeah.
What's your Gitter handle? Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. Does anyone have that? I don't have that. I have not had that success. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome. Andre, I see you have something on the agenda.
Yep, I wanted to, so hey everyone, I wanted to share problems that I have and solicit an advice. The problem is that there is an extension that uses default kernel, Python default kernel, and this extension has some kernel related problems. And in particular, there is something happening with kernel startup / shutdown. Something is getting messed up there. So my initial assumption was that their custom, like our initial assumption was that their custom kernel implementation is somehow busted, but it's not, because it's a default kernel. So I've looked into the implementation, and there is a place where you can pass options to kernel, like if it should shut down on a like widget creation / destruction or not, and so on. But it doesn't seem to be messing up with startup / shutdown. So I wanted to solicit general advice, like how would you go about troubleshooting this kind of problems, kernel related, but when default kernel is used. Yep. Thank you. If anything has anyone has anything to say, would be really grateful. Thank you.
Have you tried the JupyterLab kernel spy extension? It's linked twice in the chat now.
I have not, and that's kind of advice I was looking for. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you want a even bigger picture, like down to the ZMQ level, you can use Wireshark. It's available on all platforms. It's a heavyweight Qt application, but it's great.
And could you give me like a short high-level overview? So I would using Wireshark or kernel spy, I would like inspect communication between kernel and other parts of JupyterLab, right?
Right. So with kernel spy, you get to see what happens on the WebSocket. With Wireshark, you get to see everything. So everything that's happening between the kernel and the socket, and then everything that's happening between the kernel manager and the kernel itself at the ZMQ level. So you would know, if it works with IPython, you can see that it works with IPython. It works with Zeus Python. You can see it works with Zeus Python. Then you try with mystery kernel, and you can see what happens with mystery kernel.
I see. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. That is currently the end of our agenda, but I will check once more. I said at the beginning, if people had follow-ups on any of the agenda items, I'd give them some time to do that. So this is your moment. I'll be quiet for a second.
I can give a quick status update. Somewhere in Paris, there's a room full of people that has been talking about JupyterLite and WASM and PyScript and all kinds of things. So this is what the WebRTC issue that we determined earlier came from. We're going to be meeting for the next 2 days, and so we're going to be. There's evidence. Oh Jesus. And so we're going to have some good, things to come out of there. I don't know. I hope we get to the discussion of just going ahead and making JupyterLite an official Jupyter project, whatever. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what impact that has on existing repos. I don't know how those existing stuff, whatever. We're using it all over, so like, why not? The one thing that does play here is if we did that, then the case would be stronger for, much like with JupyterLab LSP. In order to support that, we had to add some more hooks in different places, like the completer and a couple other spots. We might need to make Service Manager a little bit more pluggable. So if you ever, for some reason, wanted to run, you fire up JupyterLab, you're running JupyterLab, you're like, oh, I'm going to run this thing inside of this WASM kernel in my browser. I pip install this thing. How would you access that from your desktop computer? And if we can start answering some of those questions, then that starts to pave the way for what WebAssembly could start meaning in the browser. And then I see William's on the call. What would WebAssembly start meaning on the server and everywhere else, which is kind of where I see things going eventually. So hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have something to talk about there.
That's an awesome update. Thank you. I definitely had a question partway through and then got caught up in the rest of your conversation. So anyone else have thoughts, comments? No, not sorry. That's what happens. Yeah, that's a really good update. Oh, I think I was just thinking you're right. Like your comment, we're already using it everywhere. I mean, we are using it on Jupyter.org pretty liberally as well. So I think that there's a compelling argument there for Jupyter Lite being within the project, but that's my opinion. So great. I can stop recording, and anything that someone wants to say off record can happen, but this is your final call for recorded discussion. Looks like we might have an early meeting today, so get you all some time back. Cool, cool. Thank you for being here. I will stop recording so we can do that. Thanks.